No need to worry, cops soothe fears after 30-odd deportees are sent home for committing crimes in the United Kingdom. Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on air and online at onespotmedia.com. I'm Archibald Gordon.
And I'm Lorraine Samuels. Also this evening, breaking the silence. Prominent women detail how they escape abusive relationships.
Brothers in death, cops probe a double killing in Manchester.
Age of consent, a group marches for it to be increased this evening. They make an argument.
Under fire, an MP tackles Scotiabank amidst recent fee controversy.
And in the business news, gas tracker, the latest petrol prices.
There's also the health report, sports commentary and weather in the primetime package. But before the break, the feedback question.
What can the government do to better reintegrate deportees into the Jamaican society?
Share comments online, facebook.com/television Jamaica and tweet at Television Jam.
Stay with us. Primetime News returns after this break.
Welcome back to Primetime News. Special welcome to the folks watching on onespotmedia.com.
A reminder as well that you can watch TVJ live by downloading our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1 followed by the word Spot and Media.
The Jamaica Constabulary Force is insisting there is no cause for alarm in relation to the arrival this morning of over 30 deportees from the United Kingdom.
The deportees who lived in the UK, some for a few years, others for over a decade, were sent home on a private flight to Kingston. TVJ's Herman Green has that story.
A chartered private flight from the UK saw 32 Jamaican nationals deported to Jamaica on Wednesday. The 32 includes 6 females. All of the deportees had run afoul of the British law in some way. Their flight arrived at Norman Manley International Airport, after which they were quickly taken to the Mobile Reserve Police Division for processing. But for what crimes were these persons deported?
We're seeing issues of immigration-related matters, and we're also aware of some drug-related issues and a few criminal-related issues.
But in spite of this, the head of the Area 4 Police, Assistant Commissioner Devon Watkins, says Jamaicans should not be overly concerned. He points out that the processing at the Mobile Reserve Division included checking whether any of them is wanted in any police division locally or in any other country. If so, they are taken into custody immediately. If not, they are allowed to leave. But it doesn't stop there.
Where it has become necessary to identify and ensure the monitoring of any individual, and that is determined based on the nature of any allegation that is attached to these individuals. There are established processes, both legal and law enforcement initiated processes.
He says beyond that, a collaborative effort is being used to help with their integration into Jamaican society. This involves the JCF, the Immigration Authority, and a few non-government organizations, NGOs.
Some of whom will see to the welfare issues of persons who are not able to readily make connection with their resident family members, or may have been out of touch for some time.
Jamaica last saw a mass deportation from the UK in September last year when some 50 persons were sent home on a chartered flight. Herman Green, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, as persons express concern that criminals are being deported into Jamaica, a contending view this evening. Several groups are asserting that more often than not, it's the deportees who are at risk.
If no know Jamaica, yeah, you know, no money, nothing at all, nothing, no streets, nothing at all.
Lafiama Morgan, the brother of one of the 32 deportees sent home on Wednesday, expressing concern for his brother's well-being. His brother Francois moved to the UK when he was 8 years old. He is now 22 and is being sent back to Jamaica, a country he barely remembers. His brother claims his offense in the UK was nothing major, though he refused to elaborate.
No, not really. Maybe between the young and naive and never really know the right, so he never get a criminal case yet, but it just a dip him.
But his concern is not unique. In fact, it's such a common fear that one non-government organization, NGO from the UK, Human Rights Without Borders, specializes in providing help for deportees.
I hope to assist them in putting them into contact with another organization that's called Roots to Return that can provide legal aid to people who want to make an appeal from Jamaica to go back to the UK. And another thing would be to monitor the situation they are facing when they come back.
She insists that most of the persons they help are not criminals, but have been picked up for minor offenses. She says in several cases, they are sent to unfamiliar settings and become victims of crime themselves. Assistant Commissioner of Police Devon Watkins agrees.
But I can confirm that certainly persons have been deported. When I look sometime last year, were victims themselves of criminal activities, including murders.
Well, I know of cases where people got their asylum seek rejected and then actually ended up being killed when they come back. So, yeah, I think not for everybody the transition is easily, and people are not received, like there's not much support.
So with limited assistance, the families of these Jamaicans prepare to do all they can to help their relatives get back on their feet.
No support. The only support is just him mom and me as a brother and him next brother. We have got to show him the ropes and show him the ride. We are him only support so far.
Herman Green, TVJ News.
The Manchester police are investigating whether robbery was a motive for the killing of two brothers at their home in Molliston District, Christiana, last night. One of the deceased has been identified as 32-year-old Garfield Morgan, who operated a small grocery shop in the area. The other, Dinval White, was a taxi operator. Reports are that about 11:25 last night, residents heard gunshots and alerted police. The two men were found with gunshot wounds, one inside the house, the other alongside his taxi this morning. Garfield's sister, Teresa Morgan, said her brother was a good man.
Very quiet. He might not even make sure, but he might not even talk. I mean, he's a very quiet person. Yeah, if you kill him so.
Several prominent Jamaican women today relayed some of the darkest secrets about their experience as victims of domestic-based violence and child abuse. This amidst concerns that not enough women are speaking out by using their stories to put an end to the abuse of women and children. The issue was discussed at a breakfast forum commemorating International Women's Day this morning. TVJ's Janella Precious reports.
Me, do I look to you as if I'm a woman who has been beaten?
It's not the first time that she's shared her story about being a victim of domestic abuse. But for Ambassador Alona Samba, the more she speaks about her experience, she's hoping that other women who have suffered abuse at the hands of their spouse will be encouraged to act. She recalled being abused for 7 years before leaving her husband.
And when I decided that I had to leave that relationship is when I started to go to bed with a knife. Yes. Yeah. And I said, if he touched me violently again, I would kill him. Yeah. But then I remember I had a son.
There's a concern that domestic violence is seen as a problem for women from certain social classes and not others.
What I want to impress on you, this is not a factor of the ghetto. I think it is even more prevalent in high society, if you want to call it that. It has nothing to do with race, religion, anything.
Child abuse as well. The group executive director of the JMMB group, Donna Duncan Scott, had her own story to tell, one she says she kept silent about for years.
And then, so this is like 9, 10. And then one night, he is fondling me. He just started touching me up. Now, at that moment, you do not know what is happening. So you go on like as if nothing is happening.
In terms of solutions, the call was made for more safe spaces for abused women.
All over Jamaica, we should have shelters for women to be able to have a space.
Schools are also being encouraged to intervene in cases where children are abused.
I think the only thing is for schools, teachers, to be taught how to recognize the symptoms.
Janella Precious, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, Minister with responsibility for gender affairs Olivia Grange says the government has a plan to engage more men to help in the fight against domestic abuse.
Men on board. If we don't get the men to understand that violence against women, violence against our boys, and violence against our girls is something that must end, then we will never be able to get rid of that scourge. And so we have reached out to the men as well.
There's an urgent call for legislators to move up the age of consent as crime continues to cripple the nation's children. This from residents in Manchester who took to the streets to protest against domestic violence in recognition of International Women's Day this morning. Decked in black, placards in hands, residents, inclusive of students, marched from Manchester Courthouse to Mandeville Park under the watchful eyes of the police. Parish Coordinator for Jamaicans Against Violence, Camille Newton, said one purpose of the march was to implore the government to move up the age of consent from 16 to 18 years.
We're planning to do a petition, and we're asking all the other groups, all the other humanitarian groups to step in with us, because let me tell you something, a lot of these crimes with these children that is happening is because of the reduce of age of consent. And we are saying to the government today, look into what we are saying, because everybody have a voice, and we're the one that put you there. So we are saying to you, we have a right too.
Ms. Newton said they'll be back on the streets if the law isn't changed within the next 2 months. Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for Manchester North West, Michael Phillips, who is in support of the move, is imploring women not to stay in abusive relationships.
But also we have to tighten the legislation. Not only tightening the legislation, but also have to give, organizations like the CDA and other organizations that protect our children. We need to give them more resources. We need more investigators out there. Sissoko needs more investigators, need more resources to put feet on the ground to investigate these crimes against not only our women but our children also.
Celebrations also took place in other parts of the island.
Our top story today, no need to worry, cops soothe fears after 30-odd deportees are sent home for committing crimes in the United Kingdom. Still to come, on Fair, an MP tackles Scotiabank over some of his fees. And in Business Day, the gas tracker, the latest petrol prices. We'll be right
Welcome back. Continuing the news. Ahead of tomorrow's budget presentation by Finance Minister Audley Shaw, Prime Minister Andrew Holness continues to downplay reports that the administration will raid the coffers of the National Housing Trust NHT to help finance the 2017 to 2018 budget. TVJ News posed the question to Mr. Holness, who was at an event marking International Women's Day at Emancipation Park this evening.
So yes, you will see some initiatives, greater initiatives to ensure that hard-working families can bring up their children in an environment where ambitions can be realized.
The Member of Parliament, Fitzjackson, says the recent actions of Scotiabank in imposing arbitrary fees for transactions demonstrate the need for changes to be made to the 2016 Banking Services Act. Mr. Jackson has been championing the act in Parliament to regulate the fees, which he said are exorbitant. But a bill which would regulate the fees has taken a back seat in the House. So what's next? Details in this Primetime News update.
Fitzjackson has been at the forefront of the fight against bank fees. Scotiabank, in a fight of its own, solid on social media sites for various fees. Fees which are evidence, says Fitzjackson, of the need to prevent banks from doing as they like.
What BNS has done underscore the urgency of the bill that I have tabled, and it further dismiss the claim that the banks make in general that the fees that being charged is about cost recovery. It is clear the fees being charged are revenue streams for the bank and not cost recovery as they claim. BNS did it before when they increased the encashment fee to $1,385 and reduce it. I've become more and more convinced that these charges by the banks has nothing to do with cost recovery.
It's why he says banking regulations now before Parliament need to be passed, but the bill has been put on hold now that the country's budget is in focus.
I have been the only one who spoke on it in my opening of the debate. The opportunity has not been available to other members on either side to make their contribution.
He says he's already reviewed the clause-by-clause response from the Jamaica Bankers Association on the legislation and is prepared to debate the issues in Gordon House.
We will be responding to the JBA in a very detailed way on those particular item-by-item response that they provided. But it was very useful, the observations that I made. However, regarding the minimum service package, that remained unchanged. And as I've indicated to them in our meeting, that was non-negotiable. So the minimum service package will remain, but where there are areas of ambiguity or overlap that they pointed out, we acknowledge those cases and will make the necessary adjustment when we move forward with the bill through the House.
Following public outcry, Scotiabank has withdrawn some of the charges. Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
The Education Minister has given details of a 5-year plan to take all schools off the shift system. Ruel Reid was speaking at the handing over of 10 new classroom buildings, which has effectively eliminated shifts at Old Harbour Primary School in St. Catherine. TVJ's Krista Campbell has the details.
Old Harbour Primary School was the backdrop for the Education Minister's announcement. It's long been the subject of successive education ministers abandoning the shift systems in schools. Senator Ruel Reid gave details of a 5-year building and infrastructure program he says will make it happen during his tenure. He says it will include sourcing $50 million,
including continued upgrading, where we want to tap into about a $1.2 billion from the government of Jamaica in that regard. So that would give us enough resources to take all the remaining 34 schools off shift and happily to be able to build at least 5 more schools within that program.
And given meager finances, he says the government depends on financial help from agencies like the Jamaica Social Investment Fund, JSIF. JSIF renovated and built a new 10-classroom block at Old Harbour Primary, so now the school can come off the shift system.
Before this tremendous investment by JSIF, our students had far less contact teaching hours or teaching time with their teachers. But ladies and gentlemen, children are now getting approximately 25 hours more contact teaching time.
The acting principal, George Good, says students were also inconvenienced on the shift system.
Students who were on the afternoon shift spent hours outside in the sun until the start of their shift, as we could not accommodate them on the inside. Otherwise, they would have disrupted the children who were on the morning shift.
All classrooms were equipped with fire extinguishers and other safety equipment. We have fully rehabilitated the school library. We have done work on the linkways to ensure that the children can traverse between classrooms to the bathrooms, even when it's raining. Krista
Campbell, TVJ News.
The tourism product development company TPDCO is trying to clear the air this evening about the introduction of jitneys on the cruise shipping pier in St. Ann. On Monday, tour operators who provide service to cruise shipping visitors in Ocho Rios parked their vehicles and staged a protest accusing TPDCO of taking away their livelihood. TVJ Shamela Mitchell has his primetime news follow-up.
Tour bus operators on Monday accused the tourism development company, TPDCO, of trying to take away their livelihood. This after some operators went to work only to see a jitney at the cruise shipping pier. A jitney is a small bus that carries passengers over a regular route on a flexible schedule. But according to Acting Executive Director of TPDCO, Joyce Roberts, the tour bus operators have gotten it all wrong.
We process license on behalf of the Jamaica Tourist Board, but we're not the investors, we're not the persons who own the jitney.
Ms. Roberts says she received a telephone call from the operator of the jitney making inquiries recently. However, she's yet to submit an application to TPDCO for the jitney business.
My understanding is that what was happening is that they were just training a driver. They weren't actually operating that day. They were just training the driver to make the turns because because of the jitney, doesn't take corners very well. So it was just a training process happening. That's what I heard.
Ms. Roberts further argued that there is a process to get approval from TP-DICO. She says after they receive the application forms, it will then go through the Jamaica Tourist Board and other agencies, including the Transport Authority, before final approval.
Those guys would let them know what it is that they need, whether it's white plate, red plate. My understanding is that the red plate is for people who are actually, for operators that are actually picking people up on the road. But that, I have no say as to what it is that they and I have no authority to speak on their behalf. So that operator would have to go to them and then come back to us. Once they come back to us and they've gotten the approval or the write-off from those operators, those agencies, then we can give them a sticker.
Since the protest, Ms. Roberts says she met with the tour bus operators twice to discuss the matter.
I told them that I had spoken to the operator and she was not going to get into their way at the port, and they agreed.
Shamela Mitchell, TVJ News.
Bauxite company Jamalco is moving to calm hourly workers who are restive over delayed wage negotiations between management and their union. The company says it cannot afford to pay the salaries the union is requesting, but workers insist it can. More from TVJ's Krista Campbell.
At least indicate a time and get back to the table before the matter becomes explosive.
A warning to the management of Clarendon-based bauxite company Jamalco. General Secretary of the Union of Technical, Administrative and Supervisory Personnel, UTASP, St. Patrice Ennis, says a 2-year wage negotiation process has not been bearing fruit and workers are frustrated. So on Tuesday, after completing their shifts, hourly workers stood outside the factory in protest.
We're 2 years and 3 months into our contract, still without an agreement, without a CLA from the company. We are not sure why we're at this point, because we believe that we've been quite reasonable. We've understood the company's position. It's just that they can't understand our position.
That position is for what the union calls a reasonable increase for the contract period 2015 to 2017. The workers insist that the company is now in a better position to increase their salaries. They say they have worked to help meet targets which are saving the company over $43 million per year.
At the beginning of 2016, management launched their Project 200, meaning that they want to produce alumina for $200 per ton or under. They've embarked on a number of cost-saving measures, and they've achieved their goals. They've bring down the cost of production during 2016.
In a statement, Jamalco explained that the wage negotiation with hourly workers is ongoing, but says it cannot afford the union's wage claim based on the current business climate. Jamalco also insists the offer it has made to pay the workers is not its final position and it will continue negotiations. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
Ahead of Friday's nomination day in Greater Portmore North, it's still unclear whether the Jamaica Labour Party will be contesting the March 27 by-election. But the People's National Party's candidate, Gary Nicholson, is anxious to face the electorate. Having won the seat in the last 3 consecutive local government elections, Mr. Nicholson is expressing confidence that the PNP will win again.
Each time we faced the polls, the margin kept increasing. So that would be evident that the former councillor, Michael Fisher-Edwards, did some great work. And if I were to twin that now with the feedback I'm getting from my walks, it means therefore that there's an excellent chance of retaining the seat for the People's National Party.
Several attempts to contact the JLP about his candidate have proven futile. The party was represented in the November local government election by Anne-Marie Lewis, who lost to Michael Edwards, who died recently.
One family dentist is this evening advising diabetic and hypertensive persons to visit their dentist regularly as they are at greater risk of having poor oral health. Dr. Dana Mitchell says this is due mainly in part to the medications they have to take on a regular basis. TVJ's Shamela Mitchell tells us more in this evening's Health Report.
Family dentist Dr. Dana Mitchell says she sees at least 5 individuals each week who are diabetic or hypertensive. However, the individuals would show up only when the situation is bad.
They really only come to the dentist when they're feeling pain, or they just think that, oh, the health card is going to expire soon. That's the time that they try to go to the dentist, when really and truly you should try to go to your dentist at least twice a year.
According to Dr. Mitchell, the medication these individuals take has an effect on their oral health.
For instance, in diabetic patients, because you have an ongoing infection in your body, this infection can cause the blood sugar to rise, and when your blood sugar level rises, that's not good for your diabetes health at all. We have to keep it on a low in order to prevent periodontal disease. And another thing that we see mostly in hypertensive patients is gingival hypoplasia, which is an enlargement of the gum itself. And that's usually because of the calcium channel blocker medication.
She says brushing at least twice daily is important.
So I recommend that you floss daily so you can